This episode of Talkin' About Rock is sponsored by Unleashed Music. Drawing on years of experience, contacts, and partnerships, Unleashed Music is uniquely positioned to platform, develop, and realize the vision of artists of all genres. Achieve your goals by partnering with Unleashed Music and take advantage of their decades of experience to help you create and execute your marketing campaign. Visit unleashedmusic.com for more info.
On this episode of Talking About Rock from Rose Tattoo, Angry Anderson. Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking About Rock, sponsored by School of Rock and Unleashed Music. I'm your host, Rob Edwards. Here we bring you rock interviews from veteran and upcoming artists. Subscribe on our YouTube channel to stay up to date and follow us on our social media and our website, talkingaboutrock.com. Today's guest is the current lead vocalist for Rose Tattoo. He's also acted in a string of movies, including the 1985 film Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And he's also performed as a solo artist. And having seen cancer claim the lives of 5 of his Rose Tattoo bandmates, he has become an advocate for men's health. Coming up, Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo on Talking About Rock. Okay, let's welcome to the show now from Rose Tattoo. We have with us Angry Anderson. Hey, brother, how's it going there, man?
Well, you know, it's when I say the height of summer, at the real heat in summer, it's strange because it moves from year to year. Like for 4 or 5 year pattern, it'll be at the start of summer. That's when you get the hottest, right? So, but this last couple of years we've had a lot of rain, and it's been quite warm temperature. So where I live is on the coast. I live like the area is called the Northern Beaches, and it's north of the harbour. Goes from the harbour because there's a string of beaches, as you can imagine, that goes south from the harbour, and we're on the northern beach. But yeah, so and it's quite hilly. It's quite high physically as a part of the metropolitan area. So we get a lot of really, really wild summer storms. But we've just hit a spot where it's about 4 or 5 days in where it's around about, the temperature gets to about 40, 41.
Not too bad. Yeah, it's a little chilly out here where we are here. So, but yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because the reason I was getting to that is because our not only as our time, of course, relevant to it, but our seasons are us about you're having summer when we're having winter, and vice versa.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely how it goes for sure. But
so remember, when my kids were very young, we were in America filming a TV show,
mm-hmm.
and we went to a place called Bear Mountain and to and it was a stay over, kind of like a bed and breakfast thing. Big old log cabin, huge big place, beautiful. And it was Thanksgiving, and I had my 2 youngest, or the 2 eldest, sorry, they were the 2 youngies at the time. And my daughter, the lady was really taken with my daughter, having an Australian accent, of course. But anyway, she got into conversation, and she said, "Well, it's a pity you can't be here in when it snows, because the whole area is rather beautiful, because it's a lot of pine up there, a lot of pine trees, and it's wonderful rocks and just fabulous place to go and visit." And Roxy said, "Oh, can I come back and stay? And she said, honey, you can come back and stay as long as you like. And because, you know, Roxanne at the time didn't realize like we'd be back in Australia by then. Like, so she never forgot that. She's I think possibly for a while she didn't really fully understand that, you know, Dad wasn't just being a nasty old piece of shit, that he just couldn't actually send her back, you know, like to spend, you know, Christmas. That's what she was talking about. She goes, you know, it'd be lovely to have you here because we were there at Thanksgiving, and she said it'd be lovely to have you at Christmas sometime. Because when she said, "Oh, where you folks staying?" and we said, "Well, yeah, we're living in Los Angeles at the time,
right?"
And I was overdoing the Blood from Stone album with a wonderful guitar player, producer, and writer, Michael Slamer, who I'm hoping to catch up with in a few weeks' time when we're in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you've definitely got a lot going on there, and you've led, you know, Rose Tattoo through 5 studio albums. But originally, you wanted to be a blues guitarist. Originally, I was reading when you first started out.
Pardon me. Yeah, I've just eaten some pumpkin seeds and stuff, and
Oh,
just
be
caught
careful
me off
there.
guard.
Oh,
Yeah, really. That's the thing about the health food food. Isn't it funny? There's a thing on Face Fast, and it says in the supermarket, if there's a health food section, what do you call all the other food?
Right, junk food, I guess, right?
You know what I'm saying? Like it. But yeah, sorry, pardon me. To address that question, when we were all at school and we just left school, we were mad. You know, I'd come through the 50s. You know, I'd seen the birth of rock and roll. Rock and roll came about in my, you know, childhood. That was all very exciting, and the music that I discovered when I was living with my grandparents for the first 6 years of my life, but that came through my uncle, who was the youngest of the Anderson boys, and he was a drummer in a swing band, and he introduced me to his world of music. And not only was a drummer, he was a great singer. He played trumpet rather well, but didn't play in the band. He played drums, and he played keyboards and stuff. So, and even Colin, my biological father, was very musical as well. So, but I was introduced through Ivan's collection, and the wonderful thing about radio in those days was everyone had like shortwave, or they were able to. The radios they had overseas bands on them,
Right.
and so I remember when the weather was right, like, you know, they used to say, like, as long as the wind's blowing in the right direction, we could pick up, you know, stations all around the world. He had a big antenna on the roof, and yeah, so through the radio and through him collecting records, the strongest of the musical influences because I was like 6, 7, 8 years old by this stage, you know, like in the early to mid 50s. And of course, I'd been hearing these wonderful voices of, you know, the blues artists that were coming out in, you know, because, you know, swing brought about rockabilly, you know, rock and roll brought the blues singers that have been around forever, but it brought them out of the closet, so to speak. Not they were ever in the closet, but it allowed them, you know, with, you know, like Eddie Cochran and Gene Vincent, and then, of course, later Elvis Presley and Little Richards, all our heroes.
Yeah,
our
just
rock
gave
and roll
them more
heroes.
exposure for all that type of music.
Yeah. And because they were, like Little Richard, she was a brown person, and but Jerry Lee and later Elvis, etc. They were all singing coloured style, like what they used to call coloured style. So it was a kind of a blending of a white, a Caucasian person's approach to singing, like,
that bluesy style.
Yeah. I don't even like to use the term African American, but you're not allowed to say Negro anymore, and out of respect, we don't. But yeah, I mean, people of the thing that what I'm pointing out was that all those early influences, which like I was about to say, compelled me to go into music, but induced me or seduced me into going into music, were basically blues singers, and that's what I aspired to. I thought there was nothing more romantic. I mean, very quickly I found that the great romance in being a hip swinging lead, like a vocalist, like a singer. But I certainly wasn't, and still aren't, aesthetically, like what your traditional sort of singer,
Right, but so you've had some great success. I mean, obviously, with your big hit, "Suddenly," was a great success song for you when that came out, right? On Beats from a Single Drum, you did that track. That was a great hit for you.
Yeah, it was a huge hit here, but it was huge in England. But yeah, no, I started out wanting to be a blues singer, just sit on a stool somewhere in some stinky bar and sing the blues, playing guitar. But I was lousy, still to this day, lousy guitar player. Yeah. So it's one of these things, and I place great store in the philosophic view that there are certain things destined to happen, and I think obviously I've ended up being a singer. I still consider myself to be a blues singer. And Rose Tats has always been just a very, very loud blues band.
Yeah, it's definitely a straight ahead type of bluesy rock band. You guys disbanded in '87, but came back in '98, I think, and then you took on an Australian tour. So what's the current lineup look like now?
Pardon me. We've got Paul DeMarco playing drums. He, apart from myself, the longest serving member. He joined the band in the 91 when we were asked to reform, and we grabbed the opportunity. We were asked to reform as close to the original lineup, which we were able to do, apart from Digger. Of course, Digger had died then, but at the request or at the invitation from Guns N' Roses when their first Australian tour, and they were so heavily influenced by us musically and image-wise that they paid tribute, and they asked our record label, was there any chance? And they put it to us. And we hadn't been together for months and months and months, probably a year or two. And we thought, yeah, no, this is cool. This is a good reason. Everything happens for a good reason or a not so good reason. But so we thought we got together and we rehearsed a bit and we talked about it. We thought, righto, we'll use this because of the exposure. It was going to be a gigantic tour, and it was. And we stayed together and we started writing together again. And that's usually what's happened over the life history of Rose Tattoo, is that from time to time we've spent, in some cases, years apart through personal differences and the volatility of the characters, the personalities in the band. So the band now, apart from DeMarco playing drums, we've got Stephen King playing bass. He played bass on the Blood Brothers album, which was our last album, which was we recorded that just before Mick died, Mick being one of the original members. And I just wanted to have him, and we sat down and rewrote a bunch of songs, and because we all knew he was dying, and I said, so we've got a certain amount of time, and we should document where we are at this stage, because very soon the last, apart from myself, the last of the originals would go, and I even wondered until this lineup whether I'd ever want to record again. But as they say, you leave your fate or your destiny in the hands of the gods. So we've got a long-time friend and a guy who played with Peter on quite a few occasions. A guy called Mick Arnold, or Michael Arnold, and he's playing slide. And a young Australian bloke Ronnie Simmons, who came back to join the band a couple of years ago. He'd spent 10 years playing in the Ramones, other Los Angeles-based bands.
We spoke with Ronnie a couple months ago when he put on a project, and and he was more than excited to get the news that he was going to be a full-blown member of Rose Tattoo. He said he was super excited when he heard that.
Mm. Well, we first met him when he was quite young, and I asked him at one stage. Because he was quite young then, this is quite some years ago. I said, "What do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to be one of the great rock and roll guitar players." And I said, "Well, if you have dreams that big, even if you don't get there, I mean, you'll get part of the way." So, as they say, dream big,
right?
And I said, "So, you got, apart from that," he said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, yeah, I want to play in, the best rock and roll band in the world." And I said, "Well, you might even form the best rock and roll band in the world, because just trying to be very positive." He said, No, I want to join Rose Tattoo." And this is as a teenager, and I just looked at him and I said, "Well, that was the most appropriate thing you could have said." I said, "But what it just did was it secured you a job." I said, someday in the future."
He knew exactly what he was talking about. And you guys are still moving forward and writing tracks. You got a new single coming out, Hard Road. It's going to be out February 27th. Originally featured on Steve Wright's solo album. Tell us a little bit about putting together this track here.
Well, when I was very, very young, late teens, early 20s, and we were starting to, form bands, etc., there was a very, very fertile and productive rock and roll scene in Melbourne, and bands were coming in and basing themselves in Melbourne from all over the country, because it was the place to be. Had an amazing venue. Scene going on, lots of clubs, lots of pubs. One of the first bands I saw that really caught my eye, and this is before they were recognized as a seriously successful pop band, was the Easy Beats. And I was going to this club, like many of us did, and they were the club was known to have bands from Sydney very, very often, right? They would pay them good money, and I remember seeing there was 3 bands on that night, and the Easy Beats came on, and they were pretty. The early Easy Beats were really raw and very R&B influenced, and kind of very English, like how like the early the Beatles, the Stones, the Kinks, the Animals. All those bands were very American music influenced, like all very blues based, R&B influenced, and I just thought the Easy Beats were fabulous. I mean, I just thought, because they just dynamic. And so I went and saw them a few times over, the ensuing months. And one day I was in the crowd, and Stevie, the boys came out and used to sort of mix with the fans, and he came over to me and said, anyone ever told you look like me? And I went, and I said, well, because he was quite a bit taller, but I had a Beatle haircut. We were wearing, both of us at the same time, we were wearing dark blue Beatle type suits with a black velvet collar, a la that era that the Beatles went through. Yeah, and we got talking about music and stuff, and we were friends ever since. And so when the Easy Beats became big, obviously I followed their career, and then years later, of course, we had that interesting dynamic between Buster Brown, which the band I was in then, right, and AC/DC coming about.
Right.
Phil, our drummer from Buster, went on to join AC/DC. So there's always been an interesting relationship there. If it hadn't have been for AC/DC, they persuaded George and Harry, because no one else had signed us in the early days, and they didn't really understand, and they just didn't sort of, it was all glam bands. They were, if you wanted to be a rock and roll band or a rock band, you had to be a glam band, and that, the Tats weren't. It was just all, ripped denim and, shoes we bought at what we call here opportunity shops, where they usually
in the 70s they had all the glam bands coming out, and that was the thing.
Yeah. And we were just the opposite musically, right, and image wise. So, but yeah, so the boys from AC/DC largely responsible, if not entirely responsible, for getting George and Harry to at least give us the opportunity. And once we started recording stuff there, demos, and we did all our covers, and then they said, yeah, we'll sign you, and but they were wanting to groom us, which they did. And that's what brought about our ability to be cohesive making music. They basically taught us the finer points of how to write, how to record, how to arrange. So so there's always been that wonderful. So Stevie was around at that time. He was working in A&R for Alberts. He and I did several over the years. We did several press tours. We just go around and do all the radio stations, the TV stations, and endless press, because it was a very, very vital and, like I said, very fertile scene in those days. So it was really happening, and so we got to be really good mates, and we confided in one another on a very personal level about our problems with alcohol and his with drugs and whatever. And so I remember years later we were doing that album Blood Brothers, and Kingy brought. He said, you were talking. You have talked about covering a Stevie Wright song. He said, I think we should cover as a tribute to Stevie, because Stevie was dying at that stage. We should do Black Eyed Bruiser because it so suits the band. Like it's a song that could have been written about us, or by us, But so we did a demo and it came up really well, and I sent the demo to Stevie, and I got on my phone and I said, "Have you had a listen to the track?" And he said, "Yeah." Yeah, it's vastly different to his version, obviously, as is Hard Road, vastly different from Stevie's version. But then again, we didn't want to copy Stevie. We just wanted to draw inspiration from his wonderful writing. And I remember I said, "Did you like Black Eyed Bruiser?" And he said, "I loved it. I loved it." He said, "It's so Rose Tattoo." I said, "Yeah, it could have been written for us, couldn't it?" And he said, "Well, it was." And I understood what he meant. He didn't say he wrote it for us. The Black Eyed Bruiser is about a character. And it's the same sort of character that's in Butcher and Fast Eddie. It's that working class kid who's grown up to be, he's a tough guy in a sense, but he's hardened by a hard life. And he's capable. He knows how to look after himself. He's a very, very honourable person, has working class ethic and morals. And I remember one of the last times I saw Stevie, and he was very near death by that stage. And we were talking about Black Eyed Bruiser, and I said the next song we'll cover will be Hard Road. I said, because that was, that's such a road anthem. And I think to this day, and I don't think they'd be even concerned about the comparison, if you like, but I think even the early AC/DC drew inspiration lyrically from Stevie's lyrics. And I mean, that the guitar sound that belongs to Albert's the reason it belongs to Albert's in inverted commas is because it was nurtured within the Albert studio. If you listen to those early Easy Beats recordings, very predominant guitars, nothing sweet about the sounds. They're raw because they're loud, they're raw, and that was passed on to the young brothers, George's younger brothers, Malcolm and Angus, and they took it further. And it was always about how you play a guitar, not what you plug it into. And I remember it was either Angus or Malcolm saying that one time in the studio, and it stuck me in my head. The turn of phrase was that, yeah, it's how you play a guitar, not what you plug it into. Because the weapons of choice were, predominantly the Marshall guitar and Gibson guitars. For rock and roll.
Yeah. And the new single Hard Road, that's going to be out on February 27th. We've been given permission to premiere the song here on Talking About Rock. So we're going to check out the track for Hard Road right now. For all you folks, you can take a listen to it. We'll check out the track, and we'll be right back here with Angry Anderson on Talking About Rock.
Just a fool. When I told them I was leaving home, told them I was leaving school. So in a couple of days I found myself heading down a southbound road. Well, everything I owned strapped to my back, carrying a heavy load. It's a hard road gotta travel. Hard road gotta travel. Walking the line, yeah, it's a hard road down the line. Hey, Mom and Dad, say I'm feeling good, being a traveling man. 'Cause I'm digging what I'm doing, and I'm doing it just as fast as I can. See, no
Okay, we're back here on Talking About Rock. Just checked out the premiere for the song Hard Road from Rose Tattoo. That'll be dropping February 27th for everybody else. They can check that out, definitely. So I've been looking through some of your history, and you mentioned it a little bit before. You've done a little bit of acting here and there through your career, right? You did some time in the Mad Max movie Beyond Thunderdome, as well as a couple string of other different things that also you've done.
Yeah, apart from Thunderdome, and I'll accept the accolade, or if you like, or the description of my contribution as acting. I'm not sure it was acting per se, but it was, it's you get asked to be in a movie like Mad Max. I mean, the other movies that I've done, I've had cameo parts in where they wanted to, like the first movie I ever did was about a fictional Australian town called Bullamakanka, which is there's an Australian town that's very close to that pronunciation in Australia anyway. But anyway, they've always been, small parts. But I wanted to be, when I first saw the first Mad Max, I said to my management at the time, if they're going to make another one, and I thought they've got to make another one because the first one was just so fucking amazing.
The first one was so raw and almost realistic. It was really raw, the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it epitomized, and it's not exclusively Australian, obviously, but it epitomized the Australian psyche, right? About, okay, the post-apocalyptic world, or a world that's degenerating, and it's the law is clinging to sort of trying to keep decent society together, and there's lots of outlaws, etc., out there and taking advantage, and our obsession, and yours too. It's an obsession that we Australians and Americans have always, is the obsession with combustible V8 engines. And,
right.
So and the open highway, and it represents our, it's epitomized by the legendary cowboy heroes or Western heroes, and in the same way here on a much lesser scale, but there's our most famous bushranger outlaw. Was a guy called Ned Kelly. But there was a string of them over the years, and they were all immortalized, if you like, in folktale, just as the Wyatt Earps, etc., have been in America. And so I said to the management, anyway, they worked. They worked up to doing another movie. So the word got out that they were doing a second movie. And unfortunately, I was booked to do a tour when they wanted to start filming.
Right, that was Road Warrior. That was the second one, Road Warrior, right?
Here's a curious twist. This is how amazing life can be, or is. Vern Wells, who now settled in Los Angeles after he played Wes in the second movie. He and I were in our first band together. We went to school together. We grew up in the same area. He was a little older than me, so he was a grade above me, or a couple of grades. But yeah, we actually were in a band together, just out of school, and we were great mates, etc. And I didn't know that he got the part in, because I was living in Sydney by that time. Of course, I was, I'd already, we were already touring as Rose Tattoo, and so I remember banging into him in Melbourne, and he must have come to a gig or something. And he said, "I've just done this movie." He said, "It's fucking amazing, it's a Mad Max movie." And I went, "Fuck, really?" And he went, "Yeah." And I said, you cunt. I said, you fucking, I desperately wanted to be in that movie and you fucking got in it. And he goes, man, he said, wait till you see my character. It'll fucking blow your mind, right? So, and I went, okay, right, fair enough. So the movie comes out. Like, he doesn't tell me anything. And the movie comes out and I go and see it. And I spoke to him on the phone. He said, what'd you think? I said, fucking amazing, mate. I said, just amazing. I said, if they ever make a third one, I don't give a fuck. I'm getting in this movie. And he said, well, I hope you do, because I know you were considered, you know, and it was talked about, you know, it was good. So then not long after that, he moved to Los Angeles and did movies with Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, he was always the bad guy, as I've always been. But yeah, he settled there from those early days because he was over there to promote the movie, and and he met a local, and he's been writing scripts and producing low budget movies, and has made quite a successful life for himself in Los Angeles as a filmmaker, writer. And that all spun off from the fact that you know, he appeared in the movie, and so I said, anyway, after he did Thunderdome, I wrote to him and I said, you haven't seen Thunderdome yet? He went, no, we're all waiting to come out. And I said, well, you see my fucking get up, you know, like so. So after he went and saw the movie, and he spoke to me on the phone, and he said, fucking cracker. He said, what's the chances? You know, two
Right.
boys from Pascoe Vale who grew up together, you know, like went through school together, etc. And we both end up, you know, with support cast roles in two of the greatest movies that were ever made out of Australia. I mean, of course, now these days, they no longer make them here.
Yeah, they were just awesome movies, such outstanding. And Thunderdome was just over the top. I mean, they had Tina Turner in there. They pull out all the stops for that movie. You know what I mean? That was just great. But anyways,
it was what I remember. George Miller was at my 60th, and he said, you know, that opened up the gates not only for him to make, because he had this amazing vision about where you could take the concept of the post-apocalyptic devastation, but the emergence of the dark side against the good side that would emerge quite naturally out of a situation like that. And historically, that's what's happened through history. And George is an avid, well, he's a voracious avid reader of history and the symbolism, you know, that's in, you know, like we talked about Greek mythology, etc. And because he is Greek, yeah, he was able to take that idea, that concept, and put it on. You know, I mean, the last two movies have been visually extraordinary.
yeah, they're definitely moving forward and making new stuff all the time. And you guys have moved forward too in different things. In 2006, Rose Tattoo was inducted into the Australian Recording Industry Association Hall of Fame out there, which is outstanding, you know. And then in 93, you were made a member of the Order of Australia for your role as a youth advocate out there as well.
Well, I was doing, yes. I remember going to visit Peter after they told us that we'd been nominated and accepted, and Peter was dying at that stage. And I said, "Oh, Pete, we've been, you know, inducted. We're going to be inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame. We're kind of hoping that you might be able to, you know, even if he was wheeled in a bed, you know, like, or in a chair or whatever." That didn't happen, but he said, yeah, he said, oh, fucking, you know, they've ignored us all these years. He said, they're just a bunch of cunts because he said the only reason that they've even considered is because he said, oh, I'm dying, and they want to make themselves look good, because he was always very skeptical of the management end of the industry. He didn't think much of.
Right. It's the same here with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? They don't recognize anybody till like years and years down the line. It's like there's so many folks that should have been into the one here, and it's just, I get in that conversation with people all the time where they're just dumbfounded, like certain bands, like, what you would just figure certain bands are already in, then when they're not, you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, really, there should have been, like 30 years ago.
Just some crazy stuff like that, but definitely. So you got other stuff coming up here. You got some tour dates coming up. I've been checking out. Looks like you're heading out February 7th. You're
on the ship.
Yep, you're going to be Miranda, Australia. You're got a date out there. Where is it at? Tarrant Point Hotel.
That's this weekend, actually. Yeah, we only work weekends these days.
Okay.
So yeah, because I mean the whole scene has changed so dramatically in the last 20 years, and you can't lay it all at the feet of the way that the music, with the social media and stuff, made music all accessible. The wild days of rock and roll, sadly, it came and went.
Yeah,
and it may come back again. History repeats itself, etc. So yeah, we only predominantly until when we tour Europe, we work like 6 weeks, and it's just like practically every night of the week. We might get one or maybe 2 nights off a week. But anyway, having said that, we're working right up until actually, we take a break. We come to Los Angeles.
Yeah, it looks like March 6th and 7th, you're going to be at the Whiskey out there.
Yeah. And then we go and do the ship out of Florida, the Monsters of Rock, which is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And then it looks like you start some dates in April with ZZ Top and George Thorogood then, right?
Yeah, there's that. We've got a long time association with the Top. We when we were living in Europe in the early 80s, they was a comeback tour for them, and I think it might have been Loco, that tour, but they hadn't toured for years, and I think they were waiting for Frank to get his act together, and anyway they wanted an act that could pull heads and etc. And so the record company sent them some different stuff, and they liked us. They liked our style, and so they took a chance on us. We toured right through Europe with them, and then a couple of years later, when our first tour, which is 1983, through America with Aerosmith, and then we toured with them as well. We got along so well, and musically they understood us, because in a sense we play the same kind of music. I think they're probably one of, and I said this to them when we first met. I said, I've got most of your early albums, etc., and I said, they have to be one of my favorite bands. I think Frank's just one of the just fantastic. I can't describe how good I think he is as a drummer. He's as good as anybody. He's just got this amazing groove. And Dusty, God rest your soul, young man. He was such a strong supporter of us that he loved the Tats, and so did Billy. And I think Billy's probably one of the best blues guitar players in the world.
Definitely. And they've always had such a unique style and sound. You know what I mean? When you heard a ZZ Top song come on the radio, you knew who it was. They didn't sound like anybody else.
No,
you know what I mean? Definitely.
No.
But
we're really, really excited about doing those shows.
Yeah, that sounds like some great shows. You got ZZ Top, George Thorogood. You got those dates in California. Very cool. Lots of great stuff. So great to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on and taking some time with us.
It's a pleasure, brother. Pleasure.
All right. Well, best of luck on your shows in the tour. Okay, that wraps up this episode of Talking About Rock. Thank you to my guest today, Angry Anderson from Rose Tattoo. Be sure to catch the new single, Hard Road, out February 27th. And they'll be touring Australia, or you can catch them on tour with ZZ Top and George Thorogood. All right. And thank you to our sponsors, School of Rock North Buffalo and Unleashed Music. To all our listeners, we hope that you're out there keeping the torch alive and supporting live music. Angry, again, it's been a pleasure, man.
Keep the flame alive. I couldn't have put it better. Beautiful stuff, brother.